Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dave's Bullshit episode number 2. And so today we're going to talk about some TI anecdotes or why TIs do the things that they do, right? I get asked a lot of these things a lot, and I feel like, answering these can be pretty useful and kind of dispel some of the myths involved with TI, and then kind of also what goes on with our thought process and things like that. Um, so if you watched the last video, this is kind of just a project that I'm doing, just trying to get myself to blast stuff out and not take it too seriously and not try to make everything perfect like what I want to do. And every video I'm going to make one small improvement, whether it be making thumbnails better or adding audio equipment. As you can see, we have a mic this time, or whatever. So it's a work in progress. That's me kind of like saying, disclaimer, this is going to be shitty. Please don't hold this against me for these videos not being great. So not that you would anyway, but today we're going to be talking about three main things. We're going to talk about the concept of TI rage. So what makes TI people angry. We're going to talk about why TIs argue, or kind of talk about TIs a lot of times represented with arguing. And I feel like that's not 100% true, but we definitely come off as argumentative sometimes, so I want to talk about that. And then the third point, what was the third point? And kind of like why the logic is personal to us. So like why TIs and their ideas are like so personal to them, and kind of how not to step on someone's TI and how to listen to someone that has TI and how not to aggravate them and that sort of thing. So that is the goal of this video. I hope that you enjoy it. And let's talk about TI rage first. All right, so what in the hell is TI rage? You probably have not heard this term before. Maybe. It's not a common term yet, I don't think. But it's one that me and my friend Manny have come up with. You might know him as Odom. If you're in the personality community, you might know him, but he's in ITI. And there's this phenomenon that we've labeled as TI rage, where you get really fucking pissed when someone starts talking about something that they don't know anything about or that they're incorrect on, especially if it's a topic you've researched a lot or you consider yourself to be an expert in. You get really, 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 really triggered by people giving out this like misinformation. And so it's like, it's sort of also magnified by the effect of how confident the person is like stating this information too. So it's someone on like a soapbox, like this is this way and it's this way and this is what you should do and blah, blah, blah. And they're totally incorrect. There's just a part of you that you just get so mad. Like you're just like, you're not, I guess, not necessarily mad at the person. There is a little bit of maybe that, toward if you're a decider, maybe there's a little bit of anger towards the person, but you're like, this is not correct. How dare you say something with so much assurance that is not factually correct? How dare you, right? It just feels very offensive for some reason. And so like an example would be, let's say you're like an expert on dieting, right? You've studied, what do you even call it? Studying dieting? Dietetics or whatever it is in college or whatever, and maybe you've made a profession out of it and you're helping people lose weight and all that stuff. And you have someone there on their soapbox talking about the grapefruit juice diet. Like you need to eat only grapefruits for a month, because what it does, actually, to get scientific on you, it cleanses the body. So the acidity of it forces you to not be alkaline, which is bad. And it goes in there and it actually acidifies all of the bad particles inside. And it's complete bullshit. And like as a TI user, if that's something that you've researched a lot, you're just like, oh, make him stop. Like I've had to leave conversations before, like in Discord and stuff, when they're talking about something that I've researched a lot and they don't know what they're talking about. I'm like, okay, just leave. I'm gonna get triggered. I gotta go. So it's one of those things where it's just like, and this is one reason that TIs will often say the word I think a lot. So I think it's this way. So what I think is that it's like this and this and this. And I happen to think that the grapefruit juice diet cleanses your body or whatever the hell. The reason why we qualify it with I think is not because we're like, well, I think, me being Mr. Smart TI user, It's more of like, well, it's just my opinion, or just this is just what I think. It's not necessarily the truth. I don't want to be so bold as to say this is the truth, but what I think is blah blah blah. So when you have someone who doesn't say it in that sort of way, you get mad, and um, and a lot of this is from misunderstanding. So I feel like a lot of, I would say, TE people kind of state things in a different way than TI people do. Like they'll usually kind of state stuff as though it's a fact, but I don't think they're necessarily saying it's a fact. I think TE people are putting these out there kind of expecting that you're going to add feedback to it or correct it or whatever. So it's kind of for TE people implied that that's what they're thinking, and they're just putting this out into the nether for you to throw it back at them or to whatever. And so TE people will kind of come off, at least the TI people, as very like overconfident, or I was about to say full of shit, but like, okay, sometimes TE people come off that way, but they're not full of shit. This is just the way they're figuring things out. They're putting it out there, and it's open for you to communicate back that something should change, so you all can kind of get on the same understanding, right? So it's not meant to aggravate TI users, or they're not necessarily being arrogant, or they're not full of shit. They're just, this is how they're figuring things out. And so we don't do that because TIs are figuring stuff out internally, right? So it's a bit of projection there. So TI users, you're totally fine. This is an attack against you. This is just sometimes the way it comes off, but I know it's not meant to come off that way, at least as far as I know. The logic is meant to be worked with and shared and communicated with the tribe and to ping back and forth. And so a lot of times when Ts are talking about their logic, they're processing it with you. They're not telling you what to do. They're just like, hey, feel free to correct me. Whereas TIs, we're usually not open to correction, right? We process this a lot. This is our baby. We'll present it to you, but don't you dare correct, which is not so great, right? Yeah. So where does this TI rage come from? I honestly have no idea. It doesn't really. I don't understand why we would. Well, so I have an automatic screensaver on this that just pops up randomly, and it's not anything I can control. It's locked into this anyway. Don't need to explain that. But what was I talking about? Oh yeah. So where does this come from? I don't know. I've been trying to figure this out actually. Why do we get so mad because information's not correct? Of course, nobody's going to be correct all the time. Like even TI people will talk about shit we don't know about, right? I wish I had I've been trying to figure out, it somehow hits you in the ego. I know it's definitely an ego-centered rage. Like it's a rage that like cuts a bit deep because somehow it's hitting your ego somehow. And I'm not really sure exactly why. Somehow like that information is personal to you, but I don't really understand why that would be personal, I guess. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's what we're calling TI rage, and you'll see even people on the internet. Like I see who's a good example. The Talking with Famous People guy, the NTP dude. I see him TI rage all the time. Like it's like even in like chats about OPS and stuff. Oh, that doesn't make sense. How dare you talk about it like that? How dare you talk about personality stuff like this? Or just he'll like just shit on random people, which is actually really fun to watch. I like watching his channel, but I think you get a good source of TI rage from Talking with Famous People, I think. So that's probably a good reference. Check that out. I've seen various other people do it where they'll, get triggered by information being incorrect. But yeah, so that's TI rage. All right, let's talk about TI and arguing. So kind of in the MBTI circles, especially, we're kind of known as the arguers. I would say that's not 100% true. Actually, TI people don't like to argue so much. Even though we end up arguing, we don't really like it, and it's not really our thing so much. TE people, you guys are the master arguers, not us so much, I would say. And probably better at arguing just because your brains work really quicker than ours, I think, in those sort of rapid fire situations. But yeah, so sometimes we do get into an argument, a lot of times because you've said something we feel like is not factual, right? And a lot of times we won't get into these debates. We'll try not to because like we do have FE as well, right? So we do understand that an argument sometimes can ruin kind of the vibe of what's going on, right? Like, I mean, if you think about like with an argument from like a TI user's perspective, there's two sort of outcomes. Either I feel like I won the argument, or I feel like I lost the argument. And both suck. Number one sucks because if the argument got, we're differentiating between an argument and discussion, right? If you're discussing something that's different, if it turns into an argument where both people are trying to win, then if you do win the argument, then, well, I mean, okay, great, you won the argument, I guess, whatever. But you probably annoyed the other person, right? And I think being aware of your FE, you're going to be aware of that, and you're going to be like, I mean, yeah, okay, I guess technically I was right, and maybe I performed better in the argument, but how does this other person feel from that? Did I make them feel dumb, or did I make them feel like they weren't heard, or did I misunderstand what they said, or whatever, right? I didn't necessarily improve my relationship with that person. Now, if you're arguing with a TE person, they don't really take that stuff personal so much, so I don't think you'll necessarily leave them in a bad state, but with other TI people or FE people, then perhaps, right? The other outcome is that you lose the argument, which is even worse, because then you feel angry that how could I lose this? You know what I mean? The whole TI ego thing. Like, your ideas and your intelligence are something that you really value, and you want to be good at that, right? So then the argument is showing you the opposite, and you don't like that reality, nor do you agree with it, right? So arguments, generally we don't like those so much, but we do get into them because we sometimes just can't help it. We don't want to argue, but then if you're saying something that doesn't make sense or needs to be corrected, we'll correct you on it. We're not trying to have a back and forth. We're just letting you know that you're wrong, and then we're going, which is kind of shitty, right? Like, so I don't think that TIs are as argumentative, but we can get pulled into it sometimes. And a lot of times we can come off pretty harsh. I think with me especially, I'm generally pretty nice, easygoing, not like a aggressive or asshole TI person until I start talking about the information or something being correct or not correct, right? Then it becomes very blunt and very direct, and I don't even know that I'm doing it. I wouldn't say that I turn into a full asshole, but it definitely comes off a bit jarring, and I'm not meaning to. The reason for that is, this scientist, Richard Feynman, explained this really well. I read in his book, Infinite Jest is not his book. Surely you're joking, Mr. Feynman. Can really recommend that. There's so much, if you want to get in the mind of a TI, just read that book. It's just so full of hilarious TI anecdotes. I would definitely recommend it. But he said something about when he's arguing with someone, he's not actually arguing with the person. All he sees is the logic, and he's arguing back and forth with that. So you can kind of see that as the FE disappearing. You're no longer aware of the other person. You're just aware of the logic, and you're just going back and forth with that. And so if you're talking to logic, you're probably not going to be very FE-like or paying attention to the emotional state of the other person or how this might affect them. You're just kind of attacking the logic, which can feel to the other person that you're attacking them sometimes, right? So yeah, when we do get very direct and sometimes harsh, it's because we've forgotten about you. Sorry. We were only paying attention to the logic, basically. So that's TIs and arguments. The NI of that is, we don't really like to argue, but sometimes we get pulled into it because we have to correct the information, and a lot of times we can come off as jerks because we start arguing with the information and we forget there's a person on the other side. So yeah. Okay, let's talk about TI making the T personal, the logic personal. So for you TIs out there, the thinking, the intelligence is part of your identity. It's who you are. It's driving you as a person. So that's very important to you. And if somebody attacks that or criticizes that, you feel like they're criticizing you. So your ideas or your ways of doing things, all of that, if someone says, that's stupid, or they probably won't say it like that, but oh, why don't you do it like this? It's how dare you? Are you telling me that I'm stupid? Are you saying that I hadn't considered that already? Because I have. That's kind of the basis of it, right? So think about it this way, and anyone can have TI. If you work on an idea for months, years, decades, whatever, that idea is going to be very personal to you, no matter even if you're TE or whatever, or FI, doesn't matter, right? If you spend 10 years becoming a professional athlete or working on a software application or building a car or something, you don't want people to fuck with that, right? You don't want people like, well, this is dumb or this whatever. You spent 10 years on it, right? You don't want people to like poke at it and criticize it, right? Because this is your baby now. This means something to you. This thing is special. You know, or maybe it's not that special, but you feel like it is because you put all your time into it. So if you put a lot of time into something and somebody says, how you're kind of an idiot, right? If they're right, because you spent all this time and someone can just look at it and be like, well, that's dumb. It implies that you don't know what you're doing, right? So that's, you know, so it's like with our ideas, that's kind of like personal to us, and we don't necessarily want to put it out there for criticism because we can't really take it. Well, at least us deciders can't really take it so well because, hey, I spent a lot of time on this, you know? Even with like artwork, if you spend a lot of time working on a song, you spend so much time and you think it's so great and look at all these cool things I did, and somebody's like, the bass doesn't sound good on it, and you're like, you feel like part of you feels like you're not a good musician because there's something so obvious that you missed in your years of working on this song. And then the other part of you, the ego part, comes out to defend it. Be like, no, you're stupid. This sounds great. You know what I mean? So yeah, anyway, your ideas become your baby because you process them so much. You're processing them internally, so you don't need the tribe. You're right. So you're just doing that all day. Oh, how does this work? What does this make sense? Blah, 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 blah. And you're just pinging off yourself. Okay, what do I do this step? Okay, dude, I think I should do this. Okay, the next step. Okay, I think I should do this. Okay, I need to do this next step. Wait, that conflicts with the second step. Okay, I'll go back. So you're just doing that in your head, figuring out this. And sometimes you're spending a long time, and generally we spend a long time processing stuff before we make a decision. And then we get asked stupid questions about the decision. And that feels like an implication that we're stupid, even though it's not. People are just asking questions. So like, I don't know, like maybe I came up with a boxing like training strategy. So I've boxed for a while, so usually examples are from boxing. But like, let's say I came up with the perfect Dave's way of training for boxing. And it's a new special way of training where you don't run or lift weights or spend a lot of time doing these other workouts that are not related to boxing. Instead, all of your time is actually spent on boxing techniques and muscle movements that are very closely mimicking what you would do in a boxing match. This way, you're improving your technique and you're getting fit for the sport at the same time, and you're getting fit specifically for the sport. I'm not out here doing power cleans and bench presses, which aren't going to have a lot to do with me throwing a shot, right? Like, I'm doing movements that correlate with that, and now I'm using more of my time efficiently, and then you detail all of the different workouts for that. And then somebody sees that idea and goes like, what, everyone lifts weights and running, how come you don't have running and lifting weights in there? Like, doesn't make sense. It's implying that you're stupid because you spent like probably a year coming up with that or something. Maybe not a year, you know, but it took a while though. And for someone to be like, bleh, to it, it hurts a little bit and it makes you angry because it's personal. You spend a lot of time. So like the more time you spend on something, the more it's kind of glued to your identity. So if somebody attacks that, it doesn't feel like they're attacking that. It feels like they're attacking you. Even though they're not attacking you, they are attacking that. Another example, an actual example. So like I was moving to Germany, and this is something I've been thinking about for months, getting a job, getting everything settled, saving up money, all this stuff. And then I'm talking to my dad, like, yeah, I'm going to, like I told him previously I'm going to Germany, and then we were talking on the phone. And he's like, yeah, but you need a visa to go to Germany. It's like, well, no shit. You don't think I've thought of that already? I've been like researching this for months. Like, you're going to tell me, yeah, but you need a visa to go there. And it's like, are you implying that I'm stupid? Of course I know I need a visa to go there. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. They're not trying to make you feel stupid. It's just, so I think my dad's probably teased. So it just like the first thing that comes up that he just wants to check is there. That's it. He's not like trying to say that you haven't even thought about a visa. He's not doing that. This is the first thought that comes to mind. Yeah, but the visa situation, how does that work? Of course, he didn't say it like that. It would be nicer if he did. But yeah, it's like, it feels like those little interjections. It feels like you are assuming I haven't thought about this, which isn't in some case true for some people. Like, they're not necessarily TI processing the hell out of stuff like we are. And so you feel like other people know that you've processed the hell out of this, even though they can't possibly know that. For all they know, this is just a thing you came up with earlier in the day, right? So anyway, so I guess in a nutshell, anything you work on for a long time becomes personal, whether you have TI or not. TIs are more susceptible to that, but yeah. So yeah, anything becomes personal, and if somebody attacks the thing you've worked on, you feel like the attack is coming towards you, right? And it feels like when people criticize your stuff that they're implying that you're stupid or you haven't thought about something, even though you processed it a lot. So that's kind of where that kind of why ideas tend to be personal. They tend to slowly form into your identity the more you work on them. So that makes sense. I don't know. Did I sum that up okay? What do you think? That makes okay. I feel like I didn't really. Okay, no need to worry about that. All right. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Yeah, please leave a comment if you have a question or if you want to correct something. I promise I won't get mad. Well, I can't promise. I might get a little mad, but I'll still respond and be nice. So don't worry. Okay. All right, y'all have a good one, and see you on the next episode of Dave's Bullshit. Yeah, see you.